Welcome back to Fitnixx in the kitchen. I'm going to be showing one of my favorite protein recipes, and I'll explain some of the variations and how you can make changes as we go. So we're going to be making almond butter chocolate chip protein balls. I will be using a vegan pea protein. You can also use egg whites if you want to increase the protein in the balls. I'm using a fairly lower carb version and higher fats. So coconut oil and almond butter are going to be my main ingredients in these protein balls. So when you're getting started, you want to start with more of the liquids first. That's how I usually do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to somewhat melt some of the butters. So the almond butter and the coconut oil I'm going to put in the bowl. Sometimes just heating it up for like 10 to 30 seconds in the microwave makes it very liquidy. Then you can add in your protein powder, whatever you're choosing. If you're trying to go more of a vegan route, you can use vegan proteins, you can use whey protein. I do recommend any kind of isolate, which means it is just protein, so no meal replacements, no weight gainers, nothing like that, because it's going to have a lot of extra calories and extra macros that you don't necessarily want to add. So sometimes when I'm making my protein balls, I usually kind of eyeball it. If I'm trying to create a recipe that I can share, then I'll be measuring it. But as I go, sometimes I'll make some changes to get the desired taste or textures that I want, or to adjust the macros to how I want them to be. So I'm fairly familiar with how I'm doing these. This one is one of my favorites. I've made it quite a few times over the years and kind of made some edits, some changes as I went. So because it is summertime right now, the coconut oil is pretty soft already, which is good. I might not even need to heat it up. So I'm starting with half a cup of both of the butters. So half a cup of the coconut oil, half a cup of the almond butter. And then I'm going to add my protein powder to make sure it is mixed and blended well so you don't have any chunks of powder. So this almond butter is a fresh jar, which means I want to mix up really good. A little trick: if you're buying natural nut butters, all the oil is at the top. What you do is you actually set it upside down for a day or two, let all the oils go to the bottom because it's upside down, and then turn it back over, and then you stir it up, and this way you won't have all that hard stuff at the bottom and all the oils at the top. It's a little better to mix it, a little easier to mix it nicely. That's a little trick. Again, because this is a fresh jar, it has not been in the fridge yet, so it's also quite liquidy. Again, this is very helpful for where we are at because we want these to be very soft so it's easy to mix in the protein and other ingredients. So again, quite liquidy, which is good. That's what we want right now. But if you're getting a nut butter, it can be peanut butter, it can be whatever nut butter you choose. I'll usually alternate between peanut butter and almond butter. But again, if you're getting one that's been in the fridge, it's a little more solidified, just heat up the butters for a little bit, 10 to 30 seconds, just so it's a little liquidy so you can mix it and it kind of drips off. So I'm going to be using the spoon from this point forward. I'm going to have the spatula so I can kind of, when I'm mixing it, make sure I get it all together nicely. So I'm going to kind of mix together the almond butter and the coconut oil. Again, it's fairly liquidy, which is what we want right now. So it's going to be a little easier to mix in the protein. I'm going to be putting 2 scoops of protein. And again, I did half a cup of the almond butter and half a cup of the coconut oil. This is a somewhat smaller batch. It'll probably make anywhere from 8 to 12 protein balls. Usually I make my servings about 2 balls or just one if you're looking for a quick little snack. Or in this case, because I'm doing a chocolate chip version, maybe you want a little bit of a dessert after your meal. This is a good option as well. I'm being pretty generous with the scoops. These are small scoops. Again, this is a vegan protein. I don't normally personally use vegan proteins, but sometimes I do, specifically in recipes. Usually any kind of vegan protein will actually be higher in fiber, and in terms of baking and things like that, because of the plant sources, it makes a good base and will often help the texture a little bit. So again, this isn't the protein I normally use. You'll also notice that whey proteins, if it's an isolate, might mix a little bit better. So you can easily add a little extra protein. So this 2 scoops is actually 20 grams. So I might add an extra 2 scoops because if it's more like a double serving. Okay, so this is mixing fairly well. Normally, let's see. So this is mixing fairly well. I'm gonna add another scoop of protein so you can get a little extra protein in there. Again, isolates might be able to get a little more protein per scoop, so it doesn't turn into like super powdery kind of tasting or weird textures. Also using some egg whites to mix in will add liquid, but it will also add pure protein. So another great way to add extra protein to your protein balls. So when you're mixing in the protein, you want to make sure you get all of the powder and that there's no clumps or anything left in there. Otherwise, when you go to eat one, you might get a clump of powder, and that's not going to be nice. So now that it's all mixed very well, I'm going to add a little bit of cinnamon because that's just a personal preference for me. You don't have to, but this one, I like the taste, but also cinnamon has some properties to help regulate your blood sugar, so regulate any insulin spikes. So it kind of helps make you feel satiated and can maintain energy levels as well. So I'm going to be doing half a cup, so I have a 1/4 cup scoop here, so 2 of these. Now normally you need some kind of binder like oats or almond flour or flax, anything like that to kind of help combine it so that it actually holds together well. That's also one of the reasons why I used coconut oil with the almond butter. Coconut oil hardens, so it's more of a solid texture once it's cold. So I put them in the fridge to help solidify it a little bit, and then we'll turn them into the ball. Again, you want to mix it really well. It still is a little bit liquidy because the almond butter and the coconut oil were more of a liquid. Once they get cold in the fridge for like half an hour, they will solidify and harden, and then it will be easy to turn them into balls. All right, now I'm adding my favorite part, the chocolate chips. Now, if you're trying to stick with a very strict no sugar, no chocolate kind of diet or nutrition, then there are things like stevia chocolate chips or cacao nibs. Cacao nibs don't have much of a sweetness, so be prepared for that. I'm just using some regular semi-sweet chocolate chips for this one, but often I will use stevia chocolate chips. This way I'm not adding any sugar. It's a plant-based sweetener, all natural, but they taste just like chocolate. So I'm going to be putting 2 tablespoons in here. Again, you can be a little bit more generous if you're using stevia chocolate chips, but I'm being a little more conservative because I'm using actual chocolate on this one. So we're trying to keep it healthy and low in sugar and carbs. all mixed nicely. I'm going to put it in the fridge for a little bit so it solidifies and hardens. This way it's going to be easier to make those balls. We'll put them on a cookie sheet lined with wax paper, toss them back in the fridge to harden, and then you can put them into individual wrappers or in a container, whatever you like. Okay, so I took them out of the fridge. They were in there for about 20 minutes, so it's hardened quite a bit, as you can see, which is exactly what we wanted. Now it's going to be easier to mold them into the balls, and then again, we'll put them on the cookie sheet lined with wax paper, put them back in the fridge so that they can solidify even better. Again, these are great snack. I used a vanilla protein, but if you want to switch up flavors, you can add like a chocolate protein or, some wild flavor that you like. You can really get creative with this and substitute different things. So you can make the balls kind of whatever size you like. Usually I use a spoon, and that's just kind of the size I make it. Now, again, because the coconut oil will melt fairly easily, just the warmth of my hands will probably melt it quite a bit. So you want to do this fairly fast if you can, making little balls, and then we're going to throw them back in the fridge. So I'm already noticing just rolling it in my hand, it's really starting to melt very fast because it wasn't in there too long, just enough so we could start to kind of roll them. You can always mix it up a little bit and then throw it back in the fridge a little longer if it's not quite solidified very well. You'll notice I'm not really using the spoon anymore. Basically, same sizes as best as you can. If you're looking to make these as more of a snack here and there, then I would probably make them a bit smaller so you don't go too over calories if you're looking to kind of watch your calories. I like using a spatula to make sure I get every little bit because just that little bottom's created a whole extra ball. Now, as you see, it's getting very liquidy, so we want to get it back in the fridge as soon as possible. This one might turn out a little weird, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to let them sit in the fridge for at least 20 minutes. Again, they will harden, and then usually I will store them in the fridge so that they don't start to melt, especially since it is a lot warmer out right now in the summer. All right, so that is our recipe. Very quick, very easy, not a lot of ingredients. You have your coconut oil, your nut butter of choice, your protein powder of choice, oats. I used cinnamon, but that's an optional ingredient. And of course, the chocolate chips or stevia chocolate chips. Not a lot of ingredients, very healthy, lower carb, higher fat option. You can use a little extra protein powder or egg whites to increase the protein amount if you want. But stay tuned below. You will be able to see the macro details for everything. And like I said, stay tuned and we will see the finishing product.